Hi, I'm Patricia Villone with CTV News. Joining me now is Nancy Freeman from Bowie. And Nancy's daughter, Emily, has had a very unusual experience. She works on Princess Cruises on a cruise ship, and she's pretty much been stuck at sea since March. So tell us, give us a rundown of what has happened to her.
Sure. First of all, this is Emily's second contract with Princess Cruise Line. She's an entertainer and she has a job that she absolutely loves. And she just started her second contract, and she flew to the Caribbean about the time, it was in early March, and at that point things were changing very quickly, as they still are. And we were concerned about her leaving then, but at that point, the news was that young people weren't really getting it, and if they did, it was just really like a cold. And so she went, and she got on the ship, and a few days after she got on the ship is when all you know what broke loose, and they decided that there weren't going to be any more cruises for a while. So when the cruise ship got back to port, all the guests got off, and that was on March 14th. And there have been no guests since then. And she's basically been at sea, pretty much anchored off the coast of the Bahamas since then. And the problem is they don't really have a good way to get the Americans home. Princess Cruise Lines has started repatriating crew members from other countries. And so what they've done is they're starting to consolidate like the Filipinos on one ship. And then one of the ships is going to be a taxi and basically ferry them back to the Philippines. And that's happened with the Europeans and with some of the other countries where there's a high concentration of employees from the same country. But here they are, they port in Fort Lauderdale every week or 10 days to get supplies, and they won't let the Americans off the ship.
So she's been in a really bizarre kind of situation. They've treated her very well on the ship. We spoke with her briefly yesterday. Unfortunately, the video did not convert properly, and it was a great interview, so I'm really sad that we didn't have that today. But she was saying that they treated her and all the other employees very well, gave them balcony rooms, even though they were quarantined for a couple of weeks while people were sick. But at this point, everything is so fluid, and it seems to change for her on an hourly basis. Can you fill us in on what's happened?
Sure. Well, at one point, and when we started getting really concerned, I mean, for a while, in the very beginning, they were enjoying the cruise ship. And then when they realized that they weren't going to be cruising for any time soon and the repatriation idea started, the captain decided to really enforce any anticipated CDC guidelines for health. So they were isolated. They had their temperatures taken every day, twice a day. They were confined to their rooms other than meal times and temperature checks. They had to wear masks. They had to do social distancing if they were out of the room for any reason. And so that made cruise life a lot less interesting than it had been.
I can imagine.
And then the issue is that the stories and the news keeps changing so much. At one point, she was actually on a list with other Americans who were on a cruise ship that was heading to Indonesia, and because the Americans wouldn't let them off. Now that changed, and then they said they would stay in the Caribbean until they got home, and then that changed, and they were going to go again. So it's been very fluid. At this point, I would be very surprised if they took the Americans out of the Caribbean, but they don't know which ship they're going to be on. They've already changed ships one time, and the problem is it's interesting because it's got a lot of national news just in the last few days, and everything that we hear is putting the finger on the CDC, and the CDC is pointing the finger at the cruise lines. And the basic issue seems to be that if and when the CDC decides that these crew members can disembark in Fort Lauderdale, and I assume in other ports around the country, they are not allowed to stay in a hotel. They are not allowed to use public transportation, which includes taxis and Ubers. They are not allowed to fly commercially. So how are they supposed to get home? I mean, they can get off the ship, but they can't go anywhere. I've offered to fly down there, rent a car, and drive her home. But as of today, there's now a new rule that says you can't you can't be more than 8 hours from your final destination. And of course, Bowie's way more than 8 hour drive from Fort Lauderdale. So at this point, it sounds from this morning that all the news is changing again. So I get the sense that Princess might be trying to fly people to near their homes. Um, a lot of people have asked, well, why don't they just charter planes and send everybody home? Well, on her ship alone right now, which is a consolidation of several other ships, there are 54 Americans on her ship. And that probably represents all the Americans that are in the Caribbean right now. But they're from all over the country. I don't think it's reasonable to expect Princess Cruise Lines to hire 54 different charter planes. They're going to fly her home by herself to Baltimore on one plane. So there doesn't seem to be a solution here. Just a lot of finger pointing.
So basically, she is stuck at sea, adrift at sea, is she not?
She's stuck at sea, and she has good days and bad days. If you know my daughter, she's Miss Sunshine. She's the happiest, most positive, upbeat person, but she has days that it's hard. It's hard, and it's the uncertainty that really is the hardest part. She's being well fed. She's safe. The crew members are probably they have no exposure to the virus to where they are. There is no virus on the ship, and they have no people on there's no way it could be introduced on a ship. The only people that are coming to the ship have been in quarantine as well on other ships. So it's a clean, healthy ship. I just don't understand why they can't get home.
All right. Well, we wish you the best, and we're going to hopefully be able to reconnect with her when she has a good Wi-Fi signal and isn't in limbo about where she's going that hour. So we would like to. Yeah, we would love to follow up on this story and just see how she's doing and this quest to try and get her home.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for talking with us.
You bet. Thank you.
Bye-bye.